Say, it was supposed to be a simple family dinner. Just roast chicken, mashed potatoes, and too much wine. I'd spent all week preparing cleaning the house, planning the meal, lighting every candle we had to make the dining room look warm and welcoming. Jared's family didn't visit often, and when they did, I always tried a little too hard. I told myself this time would be different, that they'd finally see me, not as some outsider who, trapped on their golden boy, but as a wife and mother worth respecting. But that hope shattered in a single sentence. Daisy, Jared's younger sister, looked up from her glass of Pinot Noir with a grin that reeked of malice. "Too bad your baby doesn't look anything like your husband," she said, her tone light, but her eyes razor sharp. The words hung in the air like smoke after a firecracker. Then, Jared, my husband, the man who held my hand through labor, who cut our son's umbilical cord, chuckled nervously and added, "Maybe Lillian has a little secret." That broke me more than anything else. The entire table erupted in laughter. His father smirked. His mother giggled behind her napkin. Even Rebecca, the cousin who pretended to be my friend, chuckled like she'd been waiting all evening for someone to say it. I sat frozen, my fork hovering above my plate hands, trembling under the table. But I didn't cry. I didn't argue. I didn't give them the scene they were hoping for. Instead, I smiled cold, practiced devastating, and slowly stood up. Every head turned toward me. My chair scraped against the hardwood floor like a warning bell. I looked at Jared and said, "Since we're sharing secrets tonight, why don't you open this?" I pulled a white envelope from my pocket and placed it in front of his plate. The laughter stopped. Jared's smirk disappeared. His hand trembled as he reached for it. And in that instant, I knew the night wasn't ruined. It had just begun. Jared's hand hovered over the envelope like it might burn him. I didn't sit back down. I stood behind my chair, calm on the outside, while my insides twisted like wire. That single envelope, so plain and quiet, now felt heavier than the chandelier above us. But what none of them knew, what even he didn't know, was that this dinner wasn't the beginning of my humiliation. It was the culmination of months of it. His silence tonight. That was just the most public. It had started quietly, little comments, little looks. The night we brought George home from the hospital, Jared had stared too long at our newborn's face. His eyes looked different. He murmured not even to me, but to the room. I pretended I hadn't heard. Then it was the nose. Sharp, not like mine. He said it again when George turned 3 months. I laughed it off. But then came the questions disguised as casual curiosity. "You're sure about the due date, right? I mean, he just doesn't look like either of us." He said it with a smile like it was funny, like I wouldn't feel it like a knife. At first I made excuses for him. That's what wives do, right? Tell themselves he's just tired, stressed, adjusting to fatherhood. But deep down, I knew better. He wasn't adjusting. He was distancing. From me. From George. From the life we built together. He never asked for a DNA test, not directly. But the implication was always there. In the way he held George, like he was made of glass. In the way he avoided eye contact when I brought up milestones. In the way he flinched when I suggested we take a family portrait. All those small betrayals added up until I didn't recognize the man sleeping next to me. If you've ever been in a room full of people who smile to your face, but secretly question your worth, leave a yes in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories that remind you silence doesn't mean surrender. Because I wasn't silent anymore. I'd started documenting every moment, every look, every word that didn't sit right. And I'd made a decision. I wouldn't just tell the truth. I would prove it. That envelope, it wasn't revenge. It was justice, quiet, calculated, overdue. And that night, it was finally time to let it speak for me. The night I decided to get the DNA test wasn't loud or dramatic. It wasn't after a fight or some epic betrayal. It was quiet. Almost eerily so. George had fallen asleep early, his soft baby breath crackling through the monitor beside our bed. Jared sat across from me at the kitchen table, staring at his phone like I wasn't even there. I asked if he wanted to take a photo of George for the baby book. He didn't even glance up. Maybe when he's older, when his features are more defined. That was it. That was the sentence that broke me. He didn't see the flicker in my eyes, didn't notice the way my hand clenched under the table. But something inside me cracked wide open, not from sadness, from certainty. He would never believe me. Not really. Not without something cold and hard and clinical to prove what I had always known. And if he wouldn't fight for me, I'd fight for myself. For my son. The next morning, I researched labs. Not the ones that sent kits in colorful boxes and offered results through an app. No, I needed something official. Something undeniable. Riverside Genetics came up first, private, discreet, 43 minutes from our house. I called, asked if they accepted walk-ins, and scheduled a consultation for the following Tuesday. I told Jared I was running errands. I didn't lie. Just didn't give details. Collecting the samples felt like something out of a spy movie. I wrapped George's golden strands from his baby brush in tissue with trembling hands. Jared's toothbrush, I took it from the holder at 5:00 a.m., scraping the bristles into a sterile envelope like I was packaging evidence for trial. My hands shook the entire drive. The lab was tucked in a strip mall between a dental office and a tax consultant, totally forgettable. Dr. Martinez, the woman who greeted me, had kind eyes and a voice that felt like a blanket. "Are you sure about this?" she asked softly. I nodded. I need to know. What I didn't tell her was this wasn't just about knowing. It was about reclaiming control in a life where everything had started to feel like quicksand. That test wasn't for him, it was for me. And I would hold on to the truth like a sword until I was ready to raise it. I kept the envelope hidden beneath the pearls Jared gave me on our second anniversary, a gift that once made me feel cherished, now just another decoration, masking something hollow. For weeks I'd pass that jewelry box, like it was a vault holding dynamite. Some nights I'd open it just to touch the envelope, to remind myself I wasn't crazy, I wasn't wrong. I wasn't the one tearing this family apart. I waited, not out of fear, but for precision. I wanted the moment to cut clean, not a private confrontation he could dismiss. No, I wanted witnesses. I wanted the same audience that had laughed when he doubted me, the same people who treated my son like a punchline. So when Daisy made her little joke at dinner and Jared delivered his disgusting follow-up, I didn't flinch. I rose, I walked away, and I came back with 3 months of evidence folded neatly into my palm. I didn't need volume. I had silence on my side. "Since we're sharing secrets tonight," I said, my voice level almost gentle, "why don't you open this?" I placed the envelope in front of him like a gift. Jared blinked. He looked down at it, then up at me, confusion twisting across his face. The smirk he wore earlier faltered. His fingers hovered, then slowly slid the flap open. He pulled out the paper like he expected a grocery list or a passive-aggressive note. Instead, bold black letters stared back at him. Riverside Genetics paternity results. I watched the blood drain from his face. He read the first line. Then again. His lips moved without sound. Everyone at the table leaned in. Patricia froze with her wine halfway to her mouth. Rebecca stopped chewing. Even Daisy went pale. "Jared," I said calmly, "this is what you've been accusing me of for months. But unlike you, I brought proof." He looked at me like a man realizing he'd just stepped off a cliff. The laughter was gone. The smugness gone. All that remained was a man exposed by truth. He never thought I'd be brave enough to speak aloud. But I wasn't just speaking. I was reclaiming. And the silence in that room was louder than any scream I could have ever given them. Jared's lips parted, but no words came out. His hands trembled as he gripped the paternity results proof of what I'd known since the day I gave birth. George was his son. 99%. Undeniable. Unforgivable that I ever had to prove it. He blinked rapidly, still trying to process the fallout of a moment he thought would never come. The same man who tossed out cruel jokes at my expense was now reduced to silence, drowning in the very truth he once demanded. The table that had erupted in laughter just minutes before had become a graveyard of frozen expressions. Patricia looked stunned, her wine glass now trembling in her grip. Robert stared straight ahead, jaw clenched, refusing to meet anyone's eyes. Rebecca fumbled with her napkin, like it might shield her from the tension hanging in the air, like smoke after a fire. And Daisy, the smugness had drained from her face, completely replaced by something that looked suspiciously like fear. When she reached across the table, fingers twitching to grab the document from Jared's limp hands, I moved fast. I placed my hand firmly on the paper, covering the words like I was shielding sacred scripture. "Let your brother explain what he's been insinuating for months," I said, my voice calm but sharp enough to draw blood. Patricia gasped audibly. Jared blinked again. He looked like he wanted to vanish. He opened his mouth, but only a croaked version of my name escaped. Lillian, this isn't. But there were no good endings to that sentence. Nothing he could say would undo what had already been done. I stood tall, unshaken, letting everyone absorb the wreckage they helped create. Rebecca finally broke the silence with a nervous cough. "Maybe we should all just—" "No!" I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. That single syllable sliced clean through her suggestion. "We shouldn't go anywhere. Jared owes everyone an explanation. Or maybe you all just need to sit in the discomfort you created." I looked around the table at the family, who once demanded my silence in exchange for acceptance. They thought they'd broken me, but this time the only thing cracking was their illusion of control. No one spoke for a long time. It wasn't just awkward, it was suffocating. Jared sat there still holding the paper like it might rewrite itself if he stared hard enough. I turned to him, not with rage, not with tears, but with the kind of terrifying clarity that only comes after months of being underestimated. "You questioned your own son's blood," I said softly, "in front of your family. And now you want me to pretend like this never happened." He didn't answer. Couldn't. His eyes darted around the room like he was searching for a lifeline, but no one was coming to save him. Not this time. Even his mother had gone silent, watching him with a mix of shame and disbelief. It was in that moment I realized I no longer needed them. Any of them. Not their approval, not their pity, and certainly not their excuses. I turned, walked to George's high chair, and lifted him into my arms. He gurgled happily, completely unaware of the emotional wreckage scattered across the dinner table behind us. His innocence made their cruelty even more unbearable. I kissed the top of his head, his hair smelling like baby shampoo and safety. He was my reason for standing tall, for refusing to bow to their toxicity 1 second longer. Jared rose finally, desperation etched into every line of his face. "Lillian, please. Can we talk about this, alone?" I looked at him, really looked and saw not my husband, not the man I married, but the stranger who had made me doubt myself for almost a year. "You wanted to make me a public joke, I said so now. You can live with the consequences publicly." That night, I packed a small suitcase. Not to flee, but to show I could. I left with George and stayed at my sister's house. I didn't slam the door. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I simply walked out of the house like I was reclaiming a part of me I didn't even know I'd lost. Because the woman who begged for love at that dinner table, she was gone. And the woman replacing her had no interest in performing for anyone's approval ever again. 3 days at my sister's house gave me the one thing I hadn't had in months: clarity. No cold stares. No whispered doubts. Just me, George, and peace. I watched him sleep in the crib we set up by the guest room window, his little chest rising and falling with that perfect rhythm only babies have. And I made a promise to both of us I would never let anyone make him feel unwanted again, not even his father. When I returned home, I wasn't seeking reconciliation. I came back with boundaries. The first thing I did was change the password on our joint bank account. Then I called our financial advisor and requested access to every account, every investment, every document Jared had ever signed without me. He didn't protest. In fact, he seemed relieved, like maybe a part of him was tired of pretending too. We went to counseling. We had long, painful conversations. But I never let myself forget love without respect is just manipulation in disguise. and I wasn't going to raise my son in a house built on cracks, no matter how pretty the curtains were. Daisy never apologized. Her absence at family dinners became a relief. And the rest of them, they learned. Slowly, quietly. Respect isn't something you give because someone demands it. You give it when someone shows you why they deserve it. As for me, I stopped waiting for invitations. I stopped shrinking. And every time I look at George, I know he will grow up seeing his mother as someone who chose truth over comfort. Every time. Because sometimes the most powerful revenge isn't destroying someone, it's rebuilding yourself without them. If you've ever had to fight for your truth, when no one believed you, comment "Truth wins" below. And don't forget to subscribe for more real stories of women who refuse to be silenced.